Welcome. We're starting tonight with the power of aromatherapy, and this is the second class. Most of you joined me with the first one, so welcome back. Thank you. And for those that will be watching tonight on our filming, you'll have access to the information either in a PDF of the PowerPoint, or you'll get the transcript. So don't worry that they're watching and you're not. You'll have access to that. So I'm Phoenix Alexander, and I have been a certified aromatherapist for 22 years now. That's been a long time. And I use aromatherapy absolutely every day in my own skincare, hair care, and in the spa. I've been a licensed massage practitioner since 1989, so a while. So we're going to begin on the power of aromatherapy. And I have to do the disclaimer so that the studio audience will hear it. I'm the presenter, but I'm not going to assume any liability for how you actually use the essential oils. And I want you to see your medical provider. So it's not for replacing medical treatment or for diagnostic purposes, and it's not a substitute for traditional medical care, but it can be used for blending and aesthetics. And please do consult your physician for any type of medical problems that you have. And I'm not going to make any extravagant claims about the effectiveness of the essential oils. However, what you are going to hear tonight is some extensive scientific studies. They're double-blind studies. I pulled them off a website that was a government website. So that's pretty impressive that the government is now doing research on essential oils. And so they're from herbal text, scientific studies, research, and of course my own experiences with essential oils. So we're going to back up a little bit. Some of you have heard this before, but we need to talk about what is aromatherapy. It's the skilled use of pure botanical extracts for the mind, body, and the environment. And so it's essential oils. And essential oils are extracted from roots, wood, leaves, seeds, herbs, fruit, and the flowers of aromatic plants. And unless it's taken from just one plant and there's no other chemicals or synthetic substances combined with that, then it is not therapeutic. So we just need one aromatic plant and nothing else added, because we're really bombarded, inundated with lots of synthetic scents, and they cause all kinds of problems: allergies, asthma, headaches, all kinds of problems. So even though they might smell good, they have no therapeutic value. So last section we talked about how to use aromatherapy every day, and in this one I wanted to focus on how to use it in the workplace, but all of these things will be applicable for how you would use it in your home or everyday life as well. So this one is about stress. Does anybody have stress in the workplace? Right, we all do. So essential oils work by either sedating or stimulating our nervous system. And then they can also target specific areas of the brain, glands, and they can also work on our organs and various places in the body where they target. And very importantly, some essential oils work to change our emotions or our mood state. So we're going to be talking a lot about that as we go through this presentation. I have made sure that you're having the uses of the essential oils, what their properties are, how they work in the skincare and hair care, how they work on the emotions, which organs they target, and then also some scientific studies to back that up. So we've got a full night tonight. So talking about aromatherapy at work, it helps to reduce fatigue. Now I don't know about you, but sometimes I get tired by the end of the day, or sometimes I'm really tired in the morning. So essential oils can be used for energizing you in the morning, or it could be really good for that afternoon slump that you have after lunch and you're just a little fatigued and not really coherent as much. So you can use specific oils for that. We'll be going through what some of those are. Now, essential oils can also help in reducing pain and spasm. And most of the people who visit me in the spa for a massage are there because they are sitting in a desk all day with poor ergonomic chairs and workstations, and they end up with lots of neck and shoulder tension. So it's very much part of our workplace. And essential oils can work on the sore muscles. So birch and juniper, some of the oils like that are really good for putting in a massage blend to work on that. Now, I don't expect you to remember all of this, but you will have access, of course, to the printout or to a PDF of this PowerPoint, like I mentioned. So another really important thing about using essential oils in the workplace is that it helps improve our immune response. I can't tell you how many times I heard between like October and January, someone came to get their massage and they said, yeah, our whole office has been sick. It started with one person and they passed it all around. And I personally have been sick for about 2 months. But they came for their massage, right? So now they've exposed me. And so the first thing that I do is I get my breathing mix, and that's got a lot of antiviral and antiseptic properties. I put it on the face cradle. I put it on me, like on my clothes, just a drop of it, so that I'm inhaling it. So it's really important, and it's going to help to stimulate our immune system. This is kind of a little bit different application. This one's talking about water retention. So how does that apply to the workplace? Well, the lymphatic system doesn't have pumps of its own like the circulatory system. It relies on movement. And if we're sitting at a desk for 8 or 9 or 12 hours, we don't have a lot of movement. Is that true? So our feet get swollen, our legs get swollen, and we end up carrying some excess water retention. And so there are essential oils that work to help with that. And they are grapefruit, cypress, lemon, orange, and ginger. And incidentally, all of those essential oils work very well in a massage blend that you can rub on your stomach or anywhere that you're having that water retention, and it will help to stimulate the lymphatic system, and it will have a slimming effect and help reduce some of that excess water weight. So we talked a little bit about illness at work, and one of the things that essential oils do, which I think is probably the most important application, is that it helps to stimulate the body's natural healing responses. So we're going to review a little bit for those of you who have been here. All essential oils are antiseptic, meaning they kill bacteria. But some essential oils are also antiviral, antifungal, antibiotic, we talked about antibacterial. They're also antiparasitic, so they can expel worms, which is a problem, especially if you like a lot of sushi. And some of them are also anti-staph, so they're going to treat MRSA, which is, as we mentioned in the last segment, a huge problem in our society right now. So another application of aromatherapy or essential oils at work is that they help to increase calmness and relaxation. And I'm sure that you can think of a number of applications to that when you're in the workplace. So if you have to balance the budget, or one of the people here has payroll to do and people don't get that to her on time, creates a little tension and stress for her. So things like that work really well with lavender, chamomile, and orange. All of those are very uplifting. They're going to calm the nervous system. And if you were, say, doing a meeting where they were going to lay off a bunch of people, well, you're probably going to want chamomile and lavender to help that out. Another application of essential oils is it helps to increase creativity and imagination. So if you were trying to launch a new product line and you needed to get some new ideas, or you needed to do some budget cuts and you all had to work together on that, it helps basically people get on the same page, they say, because you're all working cooperatively, and it does help with that creative process. So that's an application I think would be valuable. Another thing that essential oils do is they work with our sleep and wake patterns. So if you travel, whether you're driving or whether you're flying for work, they're really important. So there are essential oils that are really good for jet lag. They would be those that stimulate the nervous system, peppermint, ginger, rosemary, things like that. Or if you needed to get to sleep, so you get to the new time zone and you're not used to that, and you know you need to sleep because you've got an early morning meeting. Well, you'd use something like orange or lavender or marjoram just on the corners of the pillow. So you're not contacting it with your face, but you're going to be inhaling that all night. So we mentioned those. Okay, so it's just a really good way for you to be able to be more in charge of your physiological state using the sedating or the uplifting oils. So we talked about this a little bit, but you know, we don't get to control who we work with, which can be good or bad. But as you know, there are a lot of different personality styles, and personality conflict is one of the biggest problems in the workplace. You know, they take you in and give you meetings about this. Well, one of the simple ways to deal with a grouchy coworker is diffusing essential oils. And one of them that I like to talk about is chamomile. So if you were to remember one thing about chamomile, I would associate that with irritability or irritation. So if they're angry or, just chronically grouchy, chamomile. But it also works that way for skin conditions. So if you have inflammation or irritation, chamomile. So if you're feeling especially sad or moody, ylang ylang, clary sage, lavender, and orange. So we'll go into this, but clary sage is called the oil of laughter. So it's a euphoric and it really helps. Probably my two favorite essential oils, if I could choose. Clary sage, I love it. It's just deep and woody and very grounding. And I love jasmine, which is very expensive. And it's also very grounding, but it's uplifting and it makes you feel really good. So essential oils can help change our psychological and emotional states. And as we go through each of the oils, I'll be really spending some time outlining exactly what they do. And the way that works is because aromatherapy is tied directly to the parts in our brain that control our emotions and store our memories. And it bypasses the logical thinking part of our brain. So aromatherapy in the workplace can help us also to be more aware of our emotions and ourselves. Because sometimes we got our head down and we're really working, and maybe we're feeling really tense, we don't really notice it. But as you use essential oils, you're going to be more tuned into your body. And it allows us to change our negative emotional states and to tune in more to our self-empowering emotional states. Some of the essential oils that help reduce depression, which is a major problem in our society, is clary sage, chamomile, ylang ylang, and orange. People have trouble saying ylang ylang. It's spelled Y-L-A-N-G, and then they repeat it. It means flower of flowers, but it's not ylang ylang, it's ylang ylang, like you'd say yellow, okay? So now you got it right. It helps, the essential oils help to reduce anxiety and mood swings. And as I go through some of the scientific studies, there are a plethora of scientific studies being done right now on helping to reduce anxiety in the workplace and also in dental procedures. That was a big one. So essential oils can help us increase self-esteem and feelings of well-being. So now I'm going to get more technical and tell you exactly how essential oils work in the brain. They're processed in the limbic system. And there is a place in the brain called the amygdala. And it wasn't discovered until fairly recently. In fact, it was after I took my certification for aromatherapy that they started talking about the amygdala. The amygdala stores our emotional records and our memories. And it is not accessed by sound vibration. What that means is that talk therapy, it doesn't access it, but smell does. So it has a direct access to that part of our brain. So it gives us a powerful way to bypass all of the thinking logical things and go directly to the place that helps us to process emotions. And then we can kind of dial in what emotional state we want to be working to heal or to create. We talked about the scent was processed in the limbic system. And this area stores our memories. And I'm sure that you've had the experience of smelling something that takes you right back. Often it's, the smell of cookies baking, oatmeal cookies, that reminds you of grandma. Or cologne that you haven't smelled for a long time and it reminds you of something. So scent is always an anchor for us to our memories. And scent has the longest recall of any of the senses. So that's kind of impressive. One of the things that I did when my children were little is that I made a special blend that was just for them. And I used it in their baths and I used it in a massage oil for them, even when I started doing the infant massage with them. So that later, when they're older, I can give that to them and it will stimulate these wonderful memories of being nurtured and loved and home. So some essential oils target and influence the functioning of glands in the brain, as I mentioned before, such as the pituitary and the pineal gland. And other essential oils target different glands in the body. And this is a really important thing. The essential oils target processes or parts of our body that are considered out of our control, autonomic. Heart rate, blood pressure, breathing, stress levels, and hormone balance. Now some of those with work we can learn to influence, but essential oils target those directly. Now this is an important thing. Aromatherapy is really a global business because it's good for the whole planet. The essential oils are derived from plants that are grown all over the world, and we want it that way. Where the plant originated, where it was incarnated and began, is where it has the most therapeutic properties. That's where it's the most potent. Basically, where it evolved is where it belongs. And the higher therapeutic properties are found where the plant naturally occurs. For instance, there are wild lavender plants that grow in the hills of France. And they only produce a few spikes of flowers, but they are so potent. They're also very expensive because it takes a lot of plant material to get those distilled. But it's not near power lines, it's not near environmental pollutions and that kind of thing. And so it makes it a very important oil. Now, there's a prominent aromatherapy company in Utah, and they grow their lavender fields right by the freeway. You can drive by them. Well, and it smells lovely for all the drivers, but think about the implications. You've got all of these carbon emissions going out, being absorbed by these plants. And then in the distillation process, they are concentrated exponentially. And then we're going to use them for therapeutic value? That makes you wonder, right? So, seems obvious. And, let's just talk about how many negative feelings are vented on a freeway, right? So I think that that's an important consideration. So we'll talk a little bit about the vibrational energy. I have to itch my nose. It's making me crazy. Isn't that very professional? When you can't, that's when you really need to. So when you use essential oils, you are taking into yourself all of the vibrational energy and all of the pollutants that plant absorbed in its environment. And so you want it to be a good environment. That is really important. So you can't take a plant that's grown in Tasmania and put it in Los Angeles with all the pollution there and expect it to have the same therapeutic properties. It simply won't. So I want to talk a little bit about energy. So as a massage therapist, we talk a lot about energy body work, and that's a little intimidating for some people. And at first it was for me too. But I want to tell you about some of the experiences I had with that so that it won't be mysterious to you. So a couple of decades ago, we took the discussion of energy out of the what we call woo-woo energy in massage into scientific fact. Every substance on earth has an energetic signature or an energetic vibration, and it can be measured in megahertz. And every element in the periodic table can be measured in megahertz. There was a scientist who was in our state, Washington State, and he was at Eastern State University in Cheney. And he built the first machine to measure energetic frequency in 1992. So that's really important. It has a funny name. It was called the BT3 Frequency Monitoring System. Fancy, right? But it was important because it was the first machine to be able to measure this vibrational energy. And Mr. Tanio tested a lot of different things to figure out what the vibrational energy was. And one of the things that's really exciting and why I included it in this presentation is that he found essential oils have higher vibrational energy than any substances found on the planet. Highest vibrational frequency. So he tested everything from food. Canned food, by the way, has no vibrational energy. Herbs get up to around 20. And essential oils start at 52 megahertz and go all the way up to 320 megahertz, which is Bulgarian rose. The Bulgarian rose is the most exquisite smell, very expensive, but it has 320 megahertz of energy. So it also showed that a healthy body is vibrating somewhere between 69 and 72 megahertz. And when that frequency drops, so does our immune response. Now, viruses have very low energetic vibration, and he found that death begins around 25 megahertz. And that the body is receptive to cancer beginning somewhere around 42. So other diseases happen when the body is vibrating around 58. So, as we mentioned before, food has 0 to 20 megahertz. Canned food has 0, none, so it's processed a lot of the energy out of it. And herbs have 23 to 30. So what does this mean for us? Why do we need to know that? When you raise your body's vibrational frequency you have created a shield or a resistance to any pathogen or thing that has lower vibrational energy. So that applies not only to environmental things, but also to thoughts and negative emotional states. So essential oils increase our vibrational energy and therefore can help us in that way. So it's a really powerful tool in helping us to stimulate our body's natural healing response and helping to shield us emotionally. I thought these were some things that would be really interesting that you've probably never heard before, and I found them fairly fascinating, so hopefully they are to you as well. So they also found that organs and glands have different frequencies and that they can be raised with essential oils. Now, essential oils can, as I mentioned before, target the functioning of glands, especially in the endocrine system. Our pituitary, which is found right up here where they would talk about the third eye, it's the master endocrine gland, and it influences the functioning of the other glands in our body. And some essential oils specifically target the pituitary, and they are clary sage, jasmine, and maybe that's why I need it, just putting that together now, and ylang ylang. I actually have a partially empty cella in my pituitary gland, and it has to work very, very hard to function properly. So that might be why I love jasmine. So other oils like bergamot, frankincense, geranium, they target the hypothalamus, and it's also an important regulating gland. There are some other scientists and doctors that are doing research in energy, and Dr. Robert O. Becker wrote the book, The Body Electric. And he talks about how a person's health is directly correlated to your vibrational frequency of your body. So it kind of backs up what we were just talking about. I read this fascinating book, and I wanted to include it here because I'd love you all to read it. It was written by Bruce Lipton. He is a research biologist and microbiologist, so he worked at a cellular level. And the book is called The Biology of Belief. Now, if you don't have a background in medical terms, the first few chapters are going to be a little rough. You can skip to the end and get to the really important things. But I believe that it was written more to present to the scientific community. But it is fantastic. And basically, in a nutshell, he explains that disease or health in our body is much less to do with the DNA that we inherit, the diseases that are passed down from our family, as it is with how we think. So how we think directly influences the cellular functioning of our body. It influences how our DNA acts. That is extremely powerful information. Another way to increase your vibrational energy is to choose empowering, uplifting thoughts. And so that's some of what he talks about in his book. But we've talked about how the essential oils do that as well. Now, this was a fascinating thing to me. I'm going to say it's been maybe 20 years ago. I saw on a massage journal, on the cover, there was a jar of geranium, and it was in a clear jar, which we don't like to store essential oils in clear jars because the sun gets to them and they oxidize. But this one was taken because it showed with Kirlian photography, and I'll explain a little bit more about what that is, a halo around this geranium oil. It was long before Photoshop. It was long before the internet. So, you know, it's the real deal. And you could see it, and it was really impressive. And they talked about the vibrational energy of these essential oils. And that was before that scientist developed the ability to measure that. But they could see it. So Kirlian photography was developed way back in 1939 by a Russian, not scientist, electrician. And it visually shows the energy around an object. And there's a very technical way that it does that, but I'm not going to tell you what that is. It photographs the bioplasma field. And so it's really impressive. You can take a picture of anything, including humans, and see this energy surrounding them. So it was really impressive to me to see that essential oil and this energy. I think that probably when they talk about an aura, being able to see the energy, I personally don't, but I think that's what they're seeing. So it made me a believer in energy and kind of took it out of the mysterious realm into something that was a lot more natural and scientific after seeing that geranium oil. And then in a later seminar that I was taking, about influencing our thoughts and changing how our bodies have disease states based on our thoughts and our emotions. She showed a picture of two people with curly photography, and they were silhouetted, so they were in the dark, but you could see their dark silhouettes, and you could see this glow around them. It was a couple, and then it showed them that was their natural state after an argument, and it was almost completely black. The energy had diminished so much, and her point was that as we argue and we're in conflict and we reduce our vibrational energy, it's actually palpable. It really matters. So this proved to me that not only did Kirlian photography work, but there was a really big deal about this energy and how to influence it and balance it. And again, one way that we can increase our vibrational energy is to use essential oils, but specifically after a conflict. Think about how that could get you together more quickly than words. Diffusing and essential oils that would get you on the same page, one that would help calm the emotions and help create that unity. So rose has the highest vibrational energy of anything on the planet, and it also works with the emotions of the heart. So I think rose would be a really good one. You couldn't diffuse that, it'd be way too expensive. But you could put a drop in your hair, maybe a drop in your clothing or under your nose. And chamomile, as we mentioned, it helps heal irritation. So did any of you have any questions about what we've covered so far? Any comments, any questions?
I find it fascinating, but I can't
Good. Okay, yeah, so is it new?
Oh, yeah.
You haven't heard most of these things. And you're in the nursing field, so this, if it's new to you, then I'm on track. Okay, excellent. So now we're going to cover the top essential oils. And it was really hard for me to choose which essential oils to cover, but I wanted you to be able to assemble about 10 essential oils that you can use with confidence, and that they cover most of the possibilities of things that you might encounter in your workplace and in your bodies and in your homes. So we're going to go through the first several until we get to lavender, and then we're going to break, because that should cover about an hour, and then we'll do our second hour after we've had a little sustenance. Okay, and aromatherapy chocolate, right? So actually, I'll tell you a funny story. When I was taking my aromatherapy certification, some years ago, certification, it was taught by a British man. He had a very heavy Cockney accent, and a Frenchman who had a ridiculous, heavy, not ridiculous, but it was like we couldn't understand him, French accent. And his name was Marcel Lavab, and he was talking about, he spent a lot of time on the aphrodisiac properties, and I thought there was an inordinate amount of time spent on that subject. And he said, chocolate is an aphrodisiac. And I was a smart aleck, because that's who I am. There are about 60 people in the room, and I said in the back table, yeah, in a minute he's going to demonstrate, show us how that works. And everyone laughed. And he stopped the class and he said, what did you say? And I wasn't going to tell him what I said, and no one at my table would tell him what I said either. He said, no, really, what did you say? And I said, well, I said that pretty soon you were going to demonstrate or volunteer to show us how that worked. And he said, oh, you are naughty. So everyone laughed, and it was actually the first time I'd been called naughty, but I think I've owned that at this point. So chocolate, you can buy essential oil of chocolate. I do have it, and it's solid at room temperature, so you have to kind of melt it to get it working. So we'll start with our top essential oils. I'm going to grab a quick swig of water here. I can save it to agua, water, mix them up. So our top essential oils, we're going to take an in-depth look at the properties and uses of essential oil for the mind, body, and environment. So we're going to start with cedarwood, and I have my handy-dandy assistant here. She's going to find the cedarwood, take the cap off, and pass it around so you can smell cedarwood. And if you have any impressions while you're smelling the cedarwood, shout it out. I want to hear how it makes you feel, where you feel it in your body. And if you don't have any comments, that's okay too. Don't want to put any pressure on you. But okay, so cedarwood. See, I want to give you a little history and some interesting facts about it, so it's not just all inundated with properties. So the Egyptians used cedarwood in their embalming and in their spiritual practice or their religion, and they used it in their cosmetics, in their coffins, and they built ships with it. So they really used cedarwood. In modern times, we have cedar chests to preserve things that are important to us and keep the moths away. But we also use it for our pets to keep the ticks and fleas away. You know, the cedar wood beds that put the shavings in it? Yeah. So it is a really good tick and flea repellent. One of the things that's interesting, in the Bible, the cedars of Lebanon were so prized that the Temple of Solomon was built with the cedars of Lebanon. And I'll just quote how it said, "It was believed to enhance spirituality and create a desire for prayer and meditation, leading one closer to God." So that's why they put the cedars of Lebanon in Solomon's temple. But currently, it is used by Tibetan Buddhists as a temple incense. And the reason that they use it is because it's so grounding and calming and uplifting, so that you are open to that meditative process. And I love cedarwood. It's heavy and woody, but did you feel kind of expansive? Did it feel calming?
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you feel it maybe in your lungs and perhaps your sinuses? Yeah. More than some of the other oils, like say if I were to pass around orange, everyone smelled orange, so you can kind of visualize, oh yeah, that's different. Cedar wood has traditionally been used to treat tuberculosis. It also works on bronchitis and coughing. It's excellent for stress and tension and fatigue. And interestingly, they use it for anemia too. Now, most of the time you have to go get iron if you have anemia, but you could also supplement that with cedarwood. It's really good for cystitis, and women tend to have more cystitis than men, and it's a big problem sometimes after childbirth, but it can be used in a rinse. So you would put some water in, a little bit of carrier like a witch hazel, maybe a couple tablespoons of that so it's not totally concentrated. Shake it up and rinse after you urinate to help with cystitis. And you can use it to feel supported emotionally and physically. It's also, as I mentioned, a really good insecticide. I thought this was interesting. Not only does it repel moths, but mosquitoes, woodworms, leeches. I haven't been exposed to too many leeches, but if I'm going to get in contaminated water with leeches, I will have my cedarwood. And rats. So that's good, right? These are some of the therapeutic properties of cedarwood. It's really antiseptic. Sometimes I stumble, I go too fast. Antifungal also. We often think of tea tree as being antifungal, and that's the one that comes to mind most often, but cedarwood is as powerful as tea tree in treating fungus. It also boosts your energy. And when you smelled it, I don't know if any of you came feeling a little anxious, probably not now that we've been sitting here a little while, but it's really good for reducing anxiety. It's a sedative, grounding, and it is a reputed aphrodisiac. See, we put it in there. It also has excellent diuretic properties. So it's good for weight loss and helping to stimulate the lymphatic system. So it's also a nerve tonic, a lymph tonic, and a respiratory stimulant. And some of those you could feel, like when you smell it, like I said, you'll feel it in certain places in your body. When we smell the eucalyptus, it's going to be really obvious in your nose and your sinuses. Nose and sinus and lungs, yeah. Nose and sinus, yeah, pretty close. So in skincare, it is actually a major oil in skincare, and it's good for inflamed conditions. So eczema, dermatitis, and also, as I mentioned, fungal infections. Now this is an important thing. It's good for hair loss, and I'm going to talk to you in a few minutes here about a scientific study that proved it created hair growth. So it's good for dandruff and hair loss. The organs and glands that it targets are many. So pancreas and spleen, and it also stimulates the pineal gland in the brain, which is a very small gland, and very importantly, the adrenal glands, which are located above the kidneys. I'm very familiar with those. I ended up with a total adrenal failure when I was 30 and nearly died from it. So the adrenal glands are responsible for, in conjunction with the pituitary gland, our fight or flight hormones. So if we're really stressed out, we need to be doing things to help calm that down. Cedarwood is one of them. Another thing that's really interesting to know about the adrenal glands is when they are under functioning, it creates inflammatory states, like on the skin, and also allergic states. So we want our adrenal glands working well. And so I gave to you last time, and I'll just mention it here, the adrenal gland reflex in the feet, you can put, say, cedarwood on that, and it's right below the center of the arch, so the arch of the foot here, and it's toward, I'll kick off my shoe and show you. It's going to be right right, adrenal glands are right here, bladder's right here, so the cystitis that we talked about would be good here. So you can take essential oils and put them on the reflexes of the feet, and you can find that online anywhere, a foot reflexology chart, and use them that way. They're very, very potent that way. Also, it stimulates the lung and respiratory system. We talked about that. So I got ahead of myself. The organ meridian that it targets is the bladder. So you can use it also for water retention. So you would massage 1 to 2 drops in a carrier oil. You always use a carrier oil. Never, never use essential oils on the skin, undiluted or neat. The only exceptions to that are tea tree and lavender. Always remember to put it with a vegetable oil or a carrier so that it can actually be absorbed into the skin. Otherwise, it's not absorbed effectively because it needs to go past the lipid barrier in the cells. Okay, kind of technical. But you can, again, massage the bladder reflexes. So let's talk about the emotional properties. We've talked a little bit about that, but it's really good for meditation. It clears away negativity and clarity and helps to bring grounding. My last client today was talking about she really wanted to go see her shaman. She felt like she had some emotional blocks, wanted to do some clearing and meditation, and specifically around some abuse issues. And I said, cedarwood, get yourself some cedarwood. And she's like, really? And I said, yeah, clary sage and cedarwood are really good for that emotional clearing. She said, okay. And peppermint will cut through emotional blocks. So there's all kind of things we can do. So this is important because when you go home and you have these top 10 oils, how do you put them together in a blend? So let's talk for a minute about blending because this is our first kind of exposure to the first oil. There's, in perfumery, and essential oils were always what they made perfumes from before we started doing chemical or synthetic perfumes. There's a base note or fixative, and that's the bottom that holds it all together. Because essential oils are volatile, and the oils like the flowers and the citruses are very volatile. They evaporate easily. So you have to have a fixative to stick it all together and let that blend work, and also help to increase the properties of it, so the therapeutic value. So, that being said, cedarwood is a base note or fixative, and it's used a lot in men's colognes. And it blends well with things like sandalwood, so a wood, sage, so the herbs, sage, marjoram, and also the citruses, tangerine, lemon, also pine and vetiver. And I'm going to have you smell vetiver when we talk about that study. It comes from the bark, so it's distilled from the bark. Now we're going to get into the scientific studies. You cannot imagine how many hours, about 80 hours, piling through, reading through these scientific studies to condense them into a version that I could share and help everybody understand. So I'm not going to go through actually the name of the study per se. I'm going to tell you what it meant. Fair? So they took cedrol, which is one of the chemical components of cedarwood, and they tested it through inhaling cedarwood. And it decreased sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight system, and it increased parasympathetic responses. So that being translated, it created slower and deeper breathing, and it lowered blood pressure, both diastolic and systolic, by several points, and it lowered heart rate, so how fast the heart was beating. Just inhaling cedarwood, cedarwood. Sometimes the scientists like to separate out components, but as aromatherapists and herbologists, we know that it has more potent properties when you leave it all together the way it was made. So there's my 2 cents. So this is the study that I mentioned about the hair loss. So alopecia is the technical term for hair loss. And premature baldness. They did a study on just essential oils, and they put them in jojoba. That was the carrier. Jojoba is closest to our natural skin lubricant or sebum, so it's really good in the hair and face care. And these were the oils that they used. They used thyme, rosemary, lavender, and cedarwood. But you could also throw in ylang ylang, which is a known hair tonic. 44% of the patients showed a marked improvement in hair growth, and that was graded by a double-blind study by dermatologists. So if you've got a double-blind study and you've got dermatologists doing it, that's really good. Now, I have heard that there are some nasty side effects of some of the common prescriptions for, or now over-the-counter remedies for hair loss, including, they call it terminal hair growth. You have hair by your tailbone. Now, so you're wanting it here, it grows there. This is not a good side effect, I'm thinking. So, just cedarwood. Okay? And Dr. Terry Friedman did a study in 2001 with ADHD patients. Now, what I want you to keep in mind is, if you don't have ADHD and you don't know anyone who does, it doesn't matter. These are people who have a special need for this. It's going to work for you too, okay? They tested 3 essential oils, cedarwood, vetiver, and lavender, for their effectiveness in controlling focus and in learning. And they didn't just ask the people or observe the people to see how they did. They actually did brainwave studies. That's pretty conclusive. And here's what they found. Vetiver was 100% effective in increasing focus. So there is a vetiver, and I believe it's in the box you'll find in there. One of the little boxes, they're labeled on the top. Okay, so vetiver is a very deep, earthy smell. Kind of smells like smoky wood or smoky dirt. Vetiver is a fixative. It's used very extensive in perfumery, and it's really heavy and apparently very hard to open. And that's because it's real heavy, and then it gets stuck to the plastic, and it doesn't want to open. So we'll be passing that around. And cedarwood. So we're talking about cedarwood, was 83% effective in improving focus. And she's going to get some water on that to make that work. So it's all good. Lavender was 60% more effective in improving focus. So the conclusion was that this helps to improve focus and learning and concentration, and there's no side effects. That's really important because a lot of the ADD, HD medications have very significant side effects, and it tends to alter their personality. So if we can diffuse something like that, or make a massage blend that they can wear on their neck, somewhere that they're going to be inhaling it, and we can do that, how exciting is that? And it would have application for us, perfect, she's got that working now, in study. If we have something we really need to study and concentrate on, I know you have an application for that right away. So you can get your cedarwood. I believe you bought some last time. So we're going to do that anchoring like we talked about. So you would smell cedarwood, put it somewhere on you, or make a massage blend, put it in your neck with a carrier each time you study. And then when you go to take the test, you wear it again. And it will give you an additional place for memory in your brain. It will stimulate your memory. So that's scent anchoring to help with memory. And it's specifically applicable to study. Okay? Next one is chamomile. So there are 3 chamomiles in the box there. So what did you think of vetiver? It's really heavy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not as pleasant as some of the others, but when you blend it like with a flower oil or a citrus oil. But think about 100% effective vetiver, just smelling that. Pretty exciting. So we're going to talk about chamomile. Chamomile there are 3 varieties that I'm going to cover. Chamomile is the herb that was most often used in antiquity, anciently. Chamomile's been used like forever. The Egyptians loved it so much that they dedicated it to their sun god, and they worshipped it. Okay, they worshipped chamomile because of its extensive healing properties. Can you smell it? It smells a little bit like blueberries, doesn't it?
I don't want to get back.
I know. Okay, this is my other favorite oil. So jasmine, the blue chamomile, and it has to be blue. And what else did I say? Jasmine, and I don't remember. There's so many. Clary sage, yes, because I need that euphoric thing. So the blue chamomile, I'm going to skip ahead for a second and tell you, this one is true blue chamomile, is Multicollis omensis. And sometimes German chamomile is called blue chamomile because it has a light blue color, but the Omensis multicollis is so strongly concentrated blue that if you put 1 drop in a gallon of carrier oil, it will color the whole thing blue. So you have to be careful that you don't get it on your clothing. But the blue, interestingly, the flower isn't blue. The blue comes out in the distillation process. How fascinating is that? But to me, it smells, the azulene, it makes the blue color. There must be a lot of azulene in blueberries. I love blueberries. But to me, when I put it in a blend, I smell a little bit of blueberry. Okay, so we're going to go back now. Anglo-Saxons considered it a sacred herb, and it was believed to repel evil. In the Middle Ages, it was a strewing herb. We've talked a little bit in the past about the strewing herbs, what they did is they threw these herbs on the floor so that when you walked on it, it would release the aroma or the essential oils. Then they really needed it in the Middle Ages because they wore their clothing until it literally putrefied and rotted on their bodies. That's bad. And it also helped to repel the bugs, the pests that came in these conditions. So chamomile was one of the strewing herbs. There's a couple more I'll mention. It's also been called the plant's physician, and they can take chamomile, put it in a sprayer, and spray it on plants that are ill, diseased, have pests or whatever, and it will heal the plant. Isn't that interesting? So this is kind of interesting to me. Anciently, or in some cultures, they snuffed it. They snorted chamomile to relieve asthma and cure insomnia. Now, I think that would make me sneeze to be snuffing chamomile, but they did it. Peter Rabbit, I don't know if you ever read the story of Peter Rabbit as a child, but Peter Rabbit gets into Mr. McGregor's garden and he eats too many of the plants. He gets a very bad tummy ache, so his mommy rabbit gives him chamomile tea. So it's a British story, and they all drink teas, so they knew about the chamomile tea. There are over 200 varieties of chamomile, and it grows best in wide open fields, and it's actually part of the daisy family. It's a really good oil for children and, as we mentioned, cranky people. It takes 1,000 pounds of flower heads to make just 1 pound of essential oil of chamomile. This is a little bit fascinating. I found this in an herb book, so I'm going to just go real quickly through that. But it's the idea of bringing the aromatherapy into your yard. So they made a sitting bench. So with the planter, you sat in it, and you put chamomile in it. There's 200 varieties of chamomile. When you sit in it, it releases the aroma. Or you could put it in the little planters beside you. If you've been to the park and you've seen the little tiny daisy-like flowers that grow in the lawn, in the grass, they're wild. That variety is called Trenig. And you can make a whole chamomile lawn with that. So it's just different ways to kind of bring that in. Or you could put it along the pathway, plant the chamomile there, so as you walk, it releases the scent. So different ways to use aromatherapy. So we're going to talk about the different chamomile varieties. I'd like you now to hand around chamomile mixta. It's going to be right there in the corner. And that's the one. Now, chamomile mixta is not actually one that's here, but I want you to smell chamomile mixta because I use it a lot. Very mild, really warm smell to it, and it's really good for skincare. So German chamomile, we talked about, is a light blue color. Roman chamomile is the chamomile that's most often used in herbology and that kind of thing, and it's got a very strong very strong smell. Roman chamomile is going to be in the little box there. And then we smelled the Multicollis omensis, the true blue chamomile, which I think is heavenly. Each variety has some subtle differences to it. And so I'm going to cover general properties of chamomile first, and then we'll go into some more specific ones and then talk about some of the scientific. So this one, it's real pungent. Now, Roman chamomile, the one I just mentioned, it can be nauseating in high doses. So if you use too much of it, you can give yourself some nausea. It's very strong, so you don't want to use it over an extended period of time because it can be overwhelming to the nervous system. But in low doses, Roman chamomile will cure nausea. So too high creates it, low enough, and it's going to cure. So it's good for like nausea and pregnancy, travel sickness, that kind of thing. So I think we covered blue, we've covered Roman, we've covered the chamomile mixta. So we've got all the chamomiles that you've smelled now. So general properties, it's going to be antibacterial, antiseptic. It's very good for inflammatory processes, as we mentioned. It helps reduce digestive spasms and colitis. And that's a big problem in our society now. It's often exacerbated by emotions. They don't know exactly what causes colitis. Ulcerative colitis, and closely related is Crohn's disease. But once it gets started, it is awful. I have a friend of mine I've known for about 17 years, and her son, I'm thinking he is about 24, 25 now, just had his entire colon removed, gone, because he's had ulcerative colitis that was so pronounced that nothing treated it. So colitis is a big problem in our society. Chamomile can help it. I don't know if it would have cured him. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's a big problem in our society. So we've talked about it. It calms, it reduces anger, It's really good for children having tantrums. Just walk over here, smell this. Put on their clothes, whatever. And it helps reduce depression and works with insomnia. So the personality temperament that you want to think about for chamomile is overly sensitive people. You know, somebody's so sensitive. They're going to be with chamomile. Or impatient, like they're just, you know, really intense, disagreeable, angry, and nervous people. Nervous people need chamomile. I went to see a comedian the other day, and she was really funny, but she was playing the part of a really neurotic person, and she did this the whole time. And it was seriously, you were like, yeah, that woman's got some issues. She'd be a good chamomile candidate, right? Now we're going to talk about some of the mental and emotional properties. It's excellent for shock, emotional shock. And it could be for physical shock. Let's say you just got into a car accident and you're in shock. Inhaling chamomile would be a really good thing. It's good for emotional pain, grief, nervousness, and as I mentioned, insomnia, because it creates a soothing, calming effect. Again, you can use it for anger, irritation, and also a really good oil for anxiety. So in blending it, it's going to be a middle note. So you smell the kind of the deeper earthy ones, the vetiver definitely, you could smell that and go, that's heavy. So you know if it smells real heavy or full or rich, it's going to be base note or fixative. And so the chamomiles are the middle notes. Most of the flowers are middle to top notes, most often a top note, because they evaporate very quickly and you can't smell them for very long. It blends well with other flower oils like lavender and vetiver, and rose and neroli and geranium. And it works well with other citrus oils. But if you use it, you're going to use it, if you're using the Roman chamomile, use it in smaller amounts. The multicolours, you can use it in larger amounts. It's an excellent oil for skincare, one of the major oils used in skincare, and also hair care, and it's really good for blondes. So we talked about Roman chamomile, and the Roman chamomile is the really strong smelling one. And it's called Anthemus nobilis, so Latin, that's going to be noble, right? Mm-hmm. It is the most healing and potent variety, and it's been used for over 200 years in the Mediterranean area. And so I'm going to go kind of rapid through some of these properties because some of them will be a little bit of a repeat, and I don't want to inundate you. So it's a painkiller, anticonvulsive. That's important. So you've got somebody who has seizures or convulsions, chamomile. I'm not saying go off the medication, but diffuse it. You know, add layers of help here. It's an antispasmodic, so muscle spasm, digestive spasms, good for that. It's going to kill germs. It's really good for digestion. It's a diuretic, so again, helping the lymphatic system, clearing out excess water weight. Talked about it being very calming and sedative. And it's a good nerve tonic, so it's going to help with agitation. You're going to use it for shock. Now, you know, that's important. Aches and pains. It also lowers blood pressure. Now, we don't talk about this very often, gout, but it happens, right? If you're in the medical field, you see people coming with gout. I had 21 kidney stones, which is really bad. Gout is uric acid deposits, and they often happen around the ankles. But people can get uric acid kidney stones too. Mine were not. They were calcium. But I once did get uric acid crystals. It wasn't pleasant. It really hurts. Okay. So gout, chamomile works for that. We've talked about that it works for digestive problems. And we're going to mention flatulence. Can we say that? It's really good for passing wind. So if you're having a lot of gas and you really don't want to share that with anyone, try some chamomile on your stomach. Put it with a carrier oil. When you put anything on the stomach, you want to go in the line of digestion. So from the right to the left, clockwise. Okay? Right to left. So that you're not backing yourself up. That's not good. Right to left. Okay? And I mentioned that it's really good for ulceration and irritation of the intestines. This was very interesting to me. It can help people who have anorexia. So it helps stimulate digestion, but also helps to deal with any emotion issues that might be driving the anorexia. So, Roman chamomile, good for allergies, burns, colic, convulsions, depression, dermatitis, earache. That's a big problem in young children. We talked about that recently. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about lavender with that too. Fevers and headache. Hysteria. It's good for hysteria. How often do we talk about hysteria anymore? Now, in years past, hysteria was a diagnosis, and they decided that you must have your uterus removed if you have hysteria. Because the Latin root of uterus is hyster, like hysterectomy, right? Okay. how archaic is that? Okay. But it's in here, so if you feel hysterical, try some chamomile, okay? Good for insomnia, irritability, migraines, kidney stones, yay, stomach ache, toothache, and vomiting. For women, it's really good for menstrual problems. So if you have PMS and menopausal symptom, so that's good. And I mentioned it's good for blonde hair. Now we're going to talk about the German chamomile. And I don't have a German chamomile because I use the I use the chamomile mix stuff. I like it better, it smells better. So sorry, no example of German chamomile. But it's a light blue, and often when you look online and you're ordering and it says blue chamomile, it's actually Matricaria chamomilla, which is the German chamomile, because it's a light blue. So, but the real good stuff, the true blue, remember multicolous, if you can remember that. But it's going to be super blue. But Matricaria chamomilla means mother herb or caring for the womb. So you can right there in the name of it get some good ideas about some of the therapeutic properties that it has. It's really good for all states of tension and stress and headaches and digestive and bowel symptoms. But it is the first oil of choice when you're dealing with nervous disorders, migraine headaches. It's good for inflammatory responses like insect bites, that kind of thing. And rheumatism, which is basically arthritis, but the older word for it was rheumatism. So in all of the herb books, they're going to call it rheumatism. Okay? Also good for liver damage. Think about that. So if you know an alcoholic, somebody who's been through a lot of toxins and environmentally, get some chamomile going. It also helps to increase the white blood cell count. So it helps to assist our healthy immune system. And it's a really good oil for children. Children, I can say that some days. I get ahead of myself, I'm reading. And usually I don't read, but there is no way that I could remember this volume of information and get it straight, okay? So I appreciate you humoring me with this. So the German chamomile, because it has the azulene that we talked about, that makes it blue, makes that yummy smell, it's really good for irritation and skin disorders. It's also really good for female disorders, menopause and balancing the reproductive system, things like irregular bleeding, cramps, late periods. It's also good for cystitis, and this one's also good for children. And it really works well in the mental or emotional domain. Now here's our true blue or blue chamomile. It is the Ormensis multicolous. And again, it's really rare to find, but if you look for it, you can find it. Most often you'll find Roman chamomile and German chamomile, which they call blue chamomile. The other two you have to really look for, but I have them because I like them. Talked about that you just want to use one drop because or you can use more than one drop, but it's very concentrated. And we talked about that the blue pigment comes up as it is distilled. So this one, the blue chamomile, you want to think of skin irritation. So it's awesome for like acne, burns, anything like that where you've got skin irritation. It's also good for colitis, spleen, and liver congestion. You want to make sure you don't stain your clothes. And it's also really good for the calming, the soothing, the hypersensitivity. And I tend to be a fairly emotional person. I get very much involved in compassion. I've been a massage therapist for 26 years, and so I have to replenish myself emotionally. And blue chamomile is like heaven to me. I could mainline. No, I love blue chamomile. It's amazing. But the other chamomiles, they're not the same. It's because of all of that azulene in it. Now we're going to get to some of the scientific studies on chamomile. And so they just talked about that it's a really good herb and that, hey, we proved what the aromatherapists knew all along. But it says that it contains bioactive phytochemicals. Okay, phytochemicals means plants. So it contains components that provide therapeutic effects. Imagine that. Now check this out. It said that chamomile was helpful in improving cardiovascular conditions. It stimulates the immune system and, are you ready? It provides some protection against cancer. So they're doing a lot of research with chamomile and cancer. Isn't that exciting? There was another study that showed how Roman chamomile was effective against advanced periodontitis, which is gum disease, and it's pretty nasty. I don't know if you know anybody with periodontitis, but it is gross. And their breath is awful, and their gums are inflamed, and their teeth get loose. It's bad. And they found that it was very effective in treating periodontal disease. And then they did another study on tattoos. So tattoos are a really big thing now. I'm ink-free, but a lot of people go get them. And sometimes it can cause infections or weeping wounds. And they found that chamomile was very effective in helping the weeping wound stage of your tattoo. Then these are several other studies, and it said that essential oil of chamomile was good for parasitic worms, okay, and colds and flu. Now, I don't know if you want to gross yourself out, look up sushi and intestinal parasites. And you're going to love chamomile. I personally do not even entertain the idea of sushi because I'm allergic to fish. But by darn, I'm going to cook it if I had it. It's scary. So, chamomile. And it also works with strep. So it was a really good anti-strep. So strep throat, right? You've heard of strep throat. And then it was also tested against a lot of different fungal and microbial strains, and it was very effective antimicrobial strain. So microbe is like a bacteria or a virus, something like that. It was also shown, this is important, to lower blood glucose levels in diabetics. So if they're using a lot of chamomile, or we'll talk about some others like eucalyptus, they do lower blood glucose, and sometimes you have to monitor what your medication levels are. Clary sage, that was the other one I told you was so happy. So we're at 1 hour now. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back. We're going to smell the oil of laughter, clary sage, and go through a few more. We're going to have our chocolate sustenance. Sorry, you'll have to get your own at home. And so this concludes part 1 of our second advanced aromatherapy treatment, or advanced aromatherapy seminar. I'm Phoenix Alexander. I'm trying too fast. Thank you for joining us.